for the introduction. And yes, I'm delighted today to have with us Margot Brown. I got the opportunity to meet Margot a few years back at in the Philippines, in fact, at the Asian Development Bank. There was a big KM event, and Margot was one of the keynote speakers. And so I got a chance to hear a little bit all the great work that she had done with her team at the World Bank. And so that's why when we started to discuss with Moria and the team about who we could invite to really present some of the great achievements about KM and AI, I mean, the first person who came to my mind was Margot. So thank you so much, Margot, for being here today.
Unpaid bill nahi.
Yeah, unpaid bill nahi.
So just before we get started, I just wanted to give a little bit of background. I remember
just a minute.
Yes?
Vincent, I'm going to mute everyone and unmute yourself, please.
Yes. Great. So I just wanted to give a bit of background. I remember when I started my PhD in knowledge management, so it's more than 20 years ago in 1999 at the George Washington University, which is very close to the World Bank. There was very, very few case studies about knowledge management, but there was one that was very popular, was knowledge management at the World Bank. So I look back just a little bit to give of background. I look back at my notes that I had taken at the time. And so I could see that in KM at the World Bank started really in 1996. In fact, on October 1st, 1996, when in his opening address at the annual meeting of the World Bank, the president of the World Bank, Mr. Wolfensohn, announced his vision of the knowledge bank. So they wanted the World Bank to become a knowledge bank. So this was really one of the starting points. And he wanted by the year 2000, the bank to be a clearinghouse for knowledge about development, not just for knowledge collected by the bank, but for information and expertise from bank partners, non-government organizations, university foundations. So according to him, what we as a development community can do is help countries by providing financing, yes, but even more importantly, by providing knowledge and lessons learned about the challenges and how we address them. And then just 15 days later, after this announcement, so Stefan Denning was appointed the program director of the knowledge management at the World Bank. So you may have heard, a lot of people may have heard about Steve Denning and his work. So there was a reorganization of the bank in a matrix format. There was a creation of the thematic groups, COPs, that helped to start breaking silos between organizations. There was a lot of work done by Steve Denning, also using storytelling to help people, everyone at the bank, understand a little bit more what knowledge management was all about. And so I think that's how things started really in around 1996. So we can see that the World Bank has a long, long history in terms of knowledge management. I think it was a precursor in terms of knowledge management. And since then, so it has been more than 25 years. I mean, I've been following and I've been also working with the bank. I know that the bank had, I mean, the KM team has up and down were more or less influential. And so we are glad today to have Margot, who's going to update us on the latest great things that they have done about this. So just wanted to give a bit of background, Margot, before we got started. That's, I mean, long time before you joined, but I think that's still relevant to show that, yeah, the World Bank has taken KM seriously for a long, long time.
Well, thank you very much. Oh, sorry, I'll let you continue.
Okay, so could you tell us a little bit, so what are some of the goals and objectives about your KM and the AI project since you joined the bank, and some of the things that you have that you have implemented since you joined?
You know, our objective in knowledge management is to support the business. So I come from the private sector primarily, and I think of knowledge management as an aid or as a means to an end. In the case of the World Bank Group, it's to be effective in terms of development impact. But there is an objective that is to be met, and knowledge management is that support function. Knowledge management wouldn't exist if the operations within the bank and the IFC didn't exist. So we have to understand our role within the organization. Your observation and your references to the knowledge bank is interesting. The bank group is very much a knowledge-based organization, but I would say that just to put a little finer point on it, it's very much a knowledge generation engine, just cranking out incredible amounts of information, all extremely valuable and useful. Sometimes too much. This is kind of the exercise that we're going through now. But I would say that there is a bit of a gap in terms of its knowledge management capabilities. So we all understand the life cycle in knowledge management, and it starts with creation. But there are these other really important components that need to be in place. And in many organizations, some do better than others in terms of instituting that. So this is, I think, one of the challenges that we face and we continue to face at the World Bank Group, is to get that understanding across that knowledge generation is not enough. We need to have these other components in place so that we're making effective use of that knowledge. I mean, you can be the knowledge bank, but if you can't find anything, it's an unrealized advantage, right? So this is the messaging that we are constantly sort of trying to get across.
You don't want it to be a knowledge cemetery, right? So
exactly. And our staff are some of the very best people in the world, the best hearts, really believe in the goal of the bank, reducing poverty and increasing shared prosperity. I mean, there are people that are so passionate about the work that they're doing, but we still make it hard for them to do that work. We don't make it as easy as possible. And so from my perspective, that's the role of knowledge management. Our job is to reduce drag in the organization so that things can be done well, efficiently, quickly, so that everyone is working in a place that they enjoy. That in terms of that's obviously one of our goals. The other piece now, in my role as the director of knowledge management at the bank, we introduced and developed a knowledge management action plan, which was presented to our board and was and is being rolled out. It's now gotten wrapped up into the bank's knowledge framework, which I think, Vincent, you downloaded. It's available publicly, but it sort of lays out the bank's desire to make the best use of what it knows. And so that new direction is, I think, heartening. We have a vice presidential unit that has been set up around knowledge, And so it's also that creation, but then also how do we make sure that people can find what they need. So I mean, our staff are super, super busy, not just in the middle of a pandemic, but always. So, you know, the knowledge packages that we developed really helped to reduce the time investment that people had to make. So that was a big piece of it. So, you know, essentially taking the pressure off of our staff. And the other piece, which I think is important, is you know, making use of a new opportunity around artificial intelligence and machine learning. Like, how can we use this new technology to deal with the, you know, millions of documents and the smart people that are walking in the halls across the World Bank Group, and having them, you know, understand it and be able to apply that knowledge. Now, it's a little different at the IFC. The IFC is the bank's private sector arm. And there I have the pleasure of working with the Senior VP of Operations as her senior advisor. And for me, it's a little bit of coming back to my roots. I have a private sector background primarily. And I tend to think in private sector terms. So, you know, we're taking a slightly different approach than the World Bank. It is much more knowledge management rather than knowledge, because, you know, in our estimation, that's not where the challenge lies. We don't have a problem in not producing knowledge. So it's on the knowledge management side. So in that institution, we have just developed our knowledge management strategy, and that hopefully will be going to our management team within the next month and a half. So yeah, so I would say that those are the goals and the objectives.
Okay, great. So can we go back to this project that you mentioned about trying to I mean, take advantage, or at least, I mean, do something with this huge amount of knowledge that have been collected through all these projects happening all over the world, and which have been happening for years and years. So you said, I mean, sometimes one of the simple definition of knowledge management is to say, to be able to provide the right knowledge to the right person through the right format, so they can make the right decision, right? So sometimes that's it's maybe an oversimplified definition of KM, but it looks like that's a little bit what you were trying to do to help support new projects. So can you tell us a little bit about, I mean, how did you go about it, and how did you get started, and tell us a bit about the story around the steps to get to your final product?
Absolutely. So when I joined the bank, we had a team working in Chennai, India, and that team was made up of a you know, kind of an interesting group of people, folks that had economics backgrounds, and so we're used to working with data and analytics. They all had an interest in the new technologies, and this sort of happened kind of off the side of a desk. The team was just getting these requests from staff, and we're generating this material. And over time, we started to look at this, and it was like, why don't we productize this? This is actually really valuable. And the sort of anecdotal feedback that we're getting from the users who were getting this material was like, wow. We had one individual, so at the bank, we don't have project managers, we have task team leaders. And at the IFC, the equivalent is an investment officer. So a TTL and an IO. So TTLs would comment and tell us, okay, this package, this would take a consultant about 2 months to pull together. And by the time we were running at full speed, the machine learning could generate the package in about 5 minutes. So for us, that was huge. That was an enormous realization that, okay, this is something that we need to get into the mainstream. But it started sort of off the corner of a desk. So once we, once we determined that we did want to move forward with this, we also wanted to do it in a smart and a sensible sort of way. So we kind of started small. Now, the other thing too is that this had been going on for a couple of years. So these guys had been kind of toying and playing with this for a couple of years. We wanted to start in a sensible way. So, low tech, we were talking Excel spreadsheets to start, showing it to a few TTLs that we knew were supportive of the work, fine tuning it a little bit until we got to a point that we thought, okay, now we can start to open this up a little bit more. So, part of this is, good timing. Part of it is a need that was being unmet. Part of it was just the kind of the serendipity around the group of people that we had at the time. And most of them are still there and are now working on the sons and daughters of the original knowledge package. But these, as I said, these folks were used to working with structured and unstructured data. They, like, in their spare time, they would be writing code and like developing algorithms. So they just, they loved it. So anyways, it was great having these folks. The other key aspect was not to overwhelm the teams. So we positioned, this package as being, this will get you started, but it shouldn't be the end game, right? But it was important not to overwhelm the teams because that's really easy to do. And then all the gains that you've made are lost. This is definitely the basics to kind of get them moving forward. Working, as I said, closely with operations. So with, and with our colleagues in IT, with Vincent, you would know the acronym OPCS, which is our Operations Policy and Country Services. They're kind of the cops and the regulators of operations. So we needed to make sure that they were on board. And just, taking those kind of evolutionary steps. That was the approach. We started with scary looking Excel spreadsheets that were emailed just to TTLs and then ended up with a really nice, slick interface in the end.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit what was inside this package and what kind of data did you use to build these packages, this knowledge package?
Well, the most important data is our project learnings and project data. So the bank has, an inventory of something like 22,000 projects, okay. Going back, I don't know how many years. And what ends up happening often is because teams are so busy, they tend to go and look at the last project that was done. They don't kind of go and really dig into the what's been learned and what's come out of projects. So all of our projects produce regular status reports, and in those status reports, you're supposed to be identifying the lessons learned. What would you do differently? So that project information was kind of the centerpiece. And then we kind of went out from there. We went to our, I'm not sure what you would call IEG. They are our arm's length evaluation body, but we work very closely with IEG. So we incorporated IEG's evaluations of projects, and they evaluate every single project, and they, give it a rating, and so incorporated their lessons learned. We worked with the library. I'm a librarian. That's my background. So my friends in the library, and all of the external sources that we had available to us were incorporated into the package. We wanted to include people as well. So who are the potential people, if you're putting together a team, who might be some good folks that you might want to think about including? Now, the World Bank Group is a very relationship-based organization. So people tend to go to the people in their network, right?
Yeah.
But those maybe are not the best people. So what we did, and our people finder, folks are filling out their own profile, right?
Yeah.
And so, they might pump it up a little bit, and so anyways, we thought, oh, okay, we don't know if we can rely on that. So what we did was we went into SAP, and we pulled people who have worked in a country or in a particular industry or in a particular area. So we were able to tap into SAP and generate names of individuals that way. And that turned out to be very accurate, but also, brought up a few new people that probably had not been considered. We went out to the other multilateral development banks. Like, everybody puts their stuff on publicly on the internet, right?
Yeah.
So we went out and pulled, projects from the Asian Development Bank, from the Inter-American Development Bank, from the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. So we went out and pulled all of their data as well. I think there's probably a couple of sources I'm forgetting, but we can go into that in a little bit more detail. And then again, as I said, working very closely with the business, taking an iterative approach, and then finally building it into the workflow so that it's actually part of the process. That was our approach, and it worked well.
And so was it, we know that, in any organization, it's always a bit sensitive to get information from different places. So was it easy for you to have access to all these different sources of information, or did you see some barriers, or people didn't want you to put your nose into some report or thing like this, or was it quite easy for you to have access to all this data?
Well, it was interesting. So we didn't really have, it's just developing the APIs, right, to connect to the sources. So that wasn't challenging. It was really interesting. Once we started to get some traction, what we had to deal with were people coming and saying, I want you to include my product in your knowledge package. And it was like, no, I'm sorry. We have to be very careful not to overwhelm the teams. Yeah. Like, we were turning so many people away who wanted their stuff also in there. And it's like, no, we can't. We're just giving, just this, and that's enough.
Yes.
So that was an interesting problem to have. And that kind of told you, okay, I think we're onto something here.
Okay, so very, very interesting. Yeah, so a huge amount of various kind of data and information you brought together, including people, which is, I think, very, very important, since we know that the experts have a lot of practical knowledge or tacit knowledge or experiential knowledge, whatever we call it, which for sure needs to be part. So can you tell us a little bit about what's inside this magical package that you deliver to them? So how did you organize all this information to make sure that it will support any kind of project?
Well, in the beginning, so the way it works is each project has to develop a project description.
Okay.
And that is typically a few paragraphs. I mean, some of them are really well done, very thorough, really good project descriptions. Others are not as good. But that's what the algorithm uses, right? As a point of comparison. And so it scans that description, and then it goes out to all of these other sources. As I said, in the beginning, it was an Excel spreadsheet, and I mean, a really, really scary looking Excel spreadsheet with many columns. And it ranks the projects, right, that you should be looking at. So, typically people will maybe look at the first 5 or 10, and then you start to get into some quite old work. But those Excel spreadsheets were helpful because it allowed us to sit down with a task team leader and look at because what we were having to work on was the relevancy, right? And fine tuning the algorithm so that the relevancy is getting better and better. So it was important for us to work with those TTLs in order to help us to improve the relevancy. And then it just gets to the point where, I mean, it's kind of a self-learning algorithm. And then you get to the point where it's actually doing better and better because more people are using it. Yeah, what was your question?
So how was it structured at the end of the day? What was inside this package? So you say, so you look at project description. So this allow you to select, I mean, the top 10 project or whatever. And what did you extract? Did you just provide the same content as it was originally in this report, or did you present it in your own way? Did you have any visualization, or how did you mixed and represented this content to the inside the package? Yeah.
So the package was a link. So who's ever using the package would then have to go on and look at that project in more detail. Actually, this was I had an interesting conversation with an individual from one of the country offices, and it was funny. He really liked the knowledge package. He thought it was a great idea, but he asked, could we generate a 10-page summary of everything in the knowledge package?
Yes.
It was like, okay, I mean, we can take it so far, but someone is going to have to look at all this material, right? There's still some effort on the team's part. I mean, maybe we have been actually playing around at the IFC with some auto summarization tools.
Yeah.
But anyways, this was 3 years ago that this question came up, and I didn't yell at him.
Yeah, sure.
Well,
so that's on the next version, yes, still.
Exactly,
yes.
exactly. So that was an interesting comment. I'm just going here to the presentation because frankly, sure. I'll be honest, I don't use the knowledge package. So, the other thing that we also included, so we have our investment business, and then we have our advisory. So we also included the most relevant advisory services and analytics projects. So those are, you know, like the bank's version of consulting projects. So those kinds of documents are also included. We also included sort of the strategic documents. So, you know, if a project is being done in a particular country, there is a country partnership framework for that country. There's a systematic country diagnostic. So all of these relevant sort of reference documents are also included. You know, the regional economic prospects, the climate change country brief. So all of those strategic documents are included. What else? We also included something from our Global Delivery Initiative. So this is a particular program that focused on delivery challenges in projects. So not technical challenges, but delivery challenges, which are you know, broad, and every project will have, you know, can have similar delivery challenges. And so we also included output from the Global Delivery Initiative as well in the package. So the end result, the interface was, you know, in SharePoint. It was very clean, really nice, easy for people to look at and digest. You know, you didn't need to be a senior economist to actually deal with all of this data. So in the end, you know, we went from that, you know, really detailed with many tabs Excel spreadsheet to this very slick, very user-friendly interface, presenting all of the information.
Okay. And so you say one of the main benefits was, first of all, I mean, saving time from, I mean, having to spend roughly 2 months to get all this document together to a 5 minutes kind of generated report. Did you add other measurement on impact or benefits on how it helped some project, or did you get any or some stories that showed how this new system help, I mean, future projects?
We did have testimonials from TTLs. We had one, so in our presentation to the board, we actually had a videotape of one of our TTLs talking about the getting the package and the team, and just okay, wow, this is great. And that was a really powerful video that the board was able to look at. The plan, we haven't done it yet, but the plan is to do an evaluation of the packages, kind of a formal look to see sort of what impact have they had. I mean, they've certainly spawned a lot of interest. It's really spurred the use of artificial intelligence, machine learning products and techniques at the bank. I mean, it's always been, you know, a data-driven organization, but this has really pushed it out into the, you know, I mean, it's so accessible now. Any bright, you know, 20-something new hire at the bank can pick this up pretty quickly.
Sure. So it's kind of, I could say, an automated peer assist. Usually before the project, we run a peer assist and we bring and try to collect and learn a little bit from all the previous project and expert things like this. So that's kind of makes the peer assist get much more easy and faster than having to bring people together or collecting all these documents. So what are some of the main challenges that you face in this project?
I think there's an impression associated with, and part of it, I think, is just some of the messaging you get from some of the technology companies, that this is sort of instantaneous, and it's nothing could be further from the truth. As I said, the team in Chennai had been sort of playing with this for a couple of years before we, looked at it and said, why don't we just be doing this on a regular basis? Everyone finds it so useful. So I think that it's just the length of time that it takes. So that means you do have to invest some time. And so, if you're fortunate enough to have some resources within the organization that you can apply to this, that's very, very helpful. So, it is tough slogging. We went through, we were approached by the EBRD, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, who were interested in learning from us. And we set up an arrangement. They also had an office in Washington. So we had an arrangement set up where we had a kind of a secondee working with our team, part of the team in DC, to be able to take that knowledge back to the EBRD and also do something similar with their data and their holdings. So I think that project has continued to move forward. I haven't talked to them lately, but that was interesting to get sort of an outsider's view of what we were doing. Then I would say just getting the word out about the package. And, at the start, it was very much a grassroots effort, right? And we had these TTLs who knew about the capabilities of the team in Chennai. And so they were part of the folks who had been convinced. But we needed to get out more broadly. And so just working through country directors, working through practice managers, doing lots of presentations on the package, doing demos. So just getting the word out. But our goal and our objective was always to have it built into the bank's main workflow. So our operations portal. I mean, this is, if you're starting a project, you have to do it through the operations portal. And that's where we wanted the package. So that's where it gets generated. But you can also, in a secondary way, generate a kind of an on-demand package as well. That was one observation that we had. Projects at the bank can be really long in duration. I mean, the average is 6 to 7 years. And then on the infrastructure side, you can have projects that are 10 to 20 years old. So a lot changes over 6 years. And so we've given people the opportunity to generate a package just on demand. So if their project has, significantly changed, then they can generate a new package. So that would be the learnings, getting the word out. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I know we have a lot of questions and a lot of people have questions for you. So I will ask my last question, which is, so here today we have a lot of practitioners, KM practitioners, so what would be your recommendation for them if they had to go through the same path? So if they were faced with a similar project, what will be some of your recommendation to make sure they are successful toward that path?
I would say you need the right people. You need people who are really passionate about this and who are curious and who know how to engage with the business, right? You can't have someone who is so technical that they can't appreciate sort of how the work actually happens. So you need someone who's got that capability. The perfect person. Actually.
Sure.
So that I think would be one. the other thing that we did, which I think turned out to be probably the right thing to do, was we did it very kind of low tech to begin with. You know, and there was a kind of a strategy behind this. We had 2 streams as part of our action plan. One was our experimental stream, and the other was the foundational work. And so the packages fell into the experimental stream. And the idea was that we, you know, very quickly try, test in a very agile sort of way. And that was the reason we did it in Excel to start. We didn't want to invest too much.
Sure.
So that worked well. Don't go out and buy a big iron piece of technology until you know you've actually got something. That was the other learning.
Yeah,
and what else?
Yeah, I think that's very, very insightful, because don't always think that you need, again, this very, very expensive system to get started. Just give it a try, and as you said, incrementally try, fail, learn, and go back and improve.
Yeah.
And once you're able to really show the value proposition of your product, then yes, probably you will be able to get the support that you need. But as you said, it requires a lot of passion, hard work, and people who are really believe into it. And of course, they are in any organization, but you need to surround yourself with such kind of people. Yeah.
I mean, the folks that we had working with us used R, which is a programming. I used Python, SAS, a few other sort of
statistical tools.
Yes, exactly. So this was, these were the tools that we were using to begin with. To prove the concept, and then and then working with our IT group to get it into the workflow. So, and now it's part of the training for OPCS, so it's part of that. The other interesting thing that we had was our country directors were very interested in the product, because what ends up happening is the country director has to approve a project, right? And he doesn't know anything about water, or he doesn't know anything about X. So he says, what the feedback we were getting was, this package is good because it tells me, okay, have you looked at this? Have you looked at this? How did you incorporate this? And so it was a bit of a checklist for them, which I thought, very interesting.
Yeah, it kind of briefs them or put them up to speed in a very rapid way. So exactly. they look smarter, right? And so
why is the job of KM?
So if you're able to make others smarter and then or wiser, then for sure they will. But yeah, that's a very good also strategy to get people to support some project. Exactly. Great, wonderful, Margot. So I know that we have a lot of questions. So I think instead of me reading the question, I would encourage anyone who want to ask a question to raise your hand, if you can say it that way, and to ask directly Margot. So it's a good way also for us to have more interaction. So who wants to start? Just raise your hand and I will. Yes, Paul.
Hi. Hi, Margot. I really enjoyed your presentation. I just wanted to ask about the workflow that you mentioned and the people finder aspect of that. I was just thinking about, how do you manage to govern the content on an ongoing basis? Because it's obviously a global scale operation. There's lots of data there which will possibly go out of date or become inaccurate over time. So do you use your workflow capability to generate requests to people to check the content, to sign it off over time? I'm just wondering how that works.
So yeah, the workflow piece of it was, I wouldn't say on the easier side. One of the things that we struggled with a little bit was the trigger to generate a package. So we needed, because, you know, we looked at some other things as part of our experiments, but the problem is that we had no insight as to when, Vincent made the reference to a peer assist session. That type of thing happens a lot across the bank, but we don't know that a peer assist is happening, so we can't use that as a trigger. So what we ended up using was, in order to get a project underway, you needed what is called an AIS. So this is an activation initiation summary. So that kicks off a project. So for us, that was the trigger to then get the package basically pulled together.
Yeah.
But the quality piece, from our perspective, we're a little bit downstream, right? This is the role of OPCS that I mentioned, Operations Policy and Country Services. So if data is going into the operations portal, you know, that is being checked by, number one, the teams, but also by OPCS to make sure that it's accurate, it's relevant, it's up to date.
Yeah.
I mean, the workflow is such that you have to have certain things in the workflow before you can move on to the next step. So, and that's the other piece as well from a knowledge management perspective, is it's not necessarily our job to opine on the quality. That is the job of the business, right? And they have their ways and processes and, you know, peer reviews and checks and double checks to make sure that the quality is there. So our assumption is that the quality is there. When the package gets generated, it's as it should be. I hope that answers the question.
So content has been curated and can be considered of quality. Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
It does. Thanks, Margot. I sent you a quick note on LinkedIn to see if there's anything we want to talk about in addition to that, but thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
you're very
Paul.
welcome.
Who else would like to ask a question? Please briefly also introduce yourself and mention where you're from. Edwin.
Hello, I'm Edwin K. Morse, and I am in Western New York with Pioneer Knowledge Services. My question is around, in your journey, what was the weakest link, people, processes, or technology? And what was the action or method you used to address it?
Wow. I would say technology.
Really?
Yeah.
How so? How so?
Well, you know, as I said, it's, you know, in my previous, I worked in professional services, both as a client-facing consultant and as an in-house leader. And in my last job at KPMG, I reported to the CIO. And so I got a view into what it's like. And, you know, there are no magic bullets in technology. Like, I mean, it's hard work. It's just the start. You need to have all your ducks in order and your house in order to actually then bring the technology in. So for us, because it was, you know, officially our first real foray into artificial intelligence and machine learning. I mean, lots of it was happening in little pockets around the bank. But it was just getting all of this to sort of come together. So yeah, I think the technology was probably the toughest piece. I mean, the processes were there. We just had to inject in the right places. And certainly, you know, I mean, we had lots of people who were cheering us on to get this, you know, productized. And we had great people working in Chennai, super smart, really passionate, a little too passionate sometimes. But yeah, the technology, hands down.
Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin. Audrey?
Yes, thank you, Vincent. Hello, Margot. So my name is Audrey. I'm working at the OECD and in analytics, and we are using similar approaches on skills data. And the question I had for you is whether you had used project description in other languages than English, because we have more and more content in other languages, especially when we work with the member countries. So is that something you are working on, or today do you work mostly with the English summaries for the project?
We work mostly with the English summaries. I mean, I'm trying to think if we even have data in the operations portal in other languages. I don't think we do. I mean, we do produce knowledge products in other languages, but internally, I think I can say the business language of the bank is English. And so it's all, in that system, it's all English. The other thing I would say, which was really interesting learning as well, and it's around that project description. So you remember I said that we had some project descriptions that were very good, really detailed and really, really good. And then we had other ones that were horrible. Like, it's just like 3 lines. So this was an interesting behavioral change that we saw when teams realized that the quality of the package depended on how good that project description was. They were coming back to redo the project description. So in an already overworked population, who comes back to do more work, right? So that was an indication that, okay, this is interesting. This is behavior change. When they see there's something of value, they will put some effort in. So, okay, tuck that away.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Audrey. Anyone else wants to ask a question? Please speak up or take the mic.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Yes,
Hi,
okay. Yes.
I'm Ian. I'm currently working at Novartis, but I've done some AI-based knowledge management systems in the past. I'm interested in, so you say that you've used this to track, to help inform decisions. Do you have examples where this has directly impacted decisions that have made as kind of success stories, and a little bit about, what the impact has been to the business to be able to kind of show that off? That makes sense.
That's an interesting question, because the packages are used, in the design and scope of a project. And as I said, they can be very long, 6 to 7 years on average. And so we haven't, I think there's an opportunity maybe to work with our IEG colleagues. So as more projects finish, to see if there's a correlation between the use of the package and higher ratings in terms of development effectiveness in our projects. Now, I don't know if I would describe them as helping to make decisions. Maybe so, if you're thinking about the design and the scope, you decide to do it this way rather than that way, based on what you've learned through the package. But we haven't come back to, again, do that evaluation to see, even from even a survey perspective, how has this impacted or aided your efforts? Has it reduced, the amount of time that is taking you? So I don't have an answer for you. Not yet. Stay tuned. No. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that the most interesting thing for me about AI and KM, the intersection there, is around how AI can be used to augment human decisions.
Right. Exactly.
And so,
yeah, I mean, the packages are not perfect, right? Like you still need someone who is knowledgeable to go through the package and say, yep, no, yep, no. It's not perfect, but as I said, it's really, really helping. But still, you need someone to read it too, and to do that thinking. Yeah.
Yes.
The other thing.
No, please go ahead.
I was just going to mention that. So at the IFC, we've developed a private sector version of the package. And we're also taking the concept, we have a ton of new people joining the organization. And so we're looking at, can we generate an onboarding package? So someone comes in, they're in the water practice, they're going to be working in South Asia. And here's a package of projects, strategic documents, the people that you should be connecting up with. So I think we can repurpose it for that. And then we're also looking at, can we take the concept and use it for generating briefings? Because we do a ton of briefings for all our senior leadership.
I will. I have a question which has been asked, and then I will ask Agus to ask his or her question. So someone, Lynn, is asking, sorry, if you, if these packages are potentially available to anyone to have a look at, or do you allow external people from the bank to use such kind of system, and or could we potentially see what this package look like?
I don't know if there's an external version. I don't think so. But Vincent, I shared that presentation with you, so that's something that you can share with the with participants, and they can kind of get us. They can see what it looks like and see a little bit of the evolution of it as well. But no, I mean, this is what I mean. The difference between knowledge and knowledge management. We're an internal function. We help to make sure that the bank is working as well as it can in order to have that development impact. So very little of our work actually ends up in the outside the firewall. I mean, people are using the results of our work to produce good quality knowledge products, but that's kind of an ancillary role.
Okay, we had a question from Agus. Agus had raised his or her hand. Do you want to ask the question?
Yes, thank you, Vincent.
Please.
Thank you for this interesting topic you bring to us, Margot. Sorry, I cannot use my video right now, but I'm sorry. I want to ask you about what is exactly about the input and output from your product, or you call package in this session, because currently my organization is trying to embrace this AI concept. So you said that you use the Python and something like the language that I don't understand, very familiar, but can you tell us about the example of the input and output from this product or package? Is it some kind like smart indexing, or maybe content analytics or semantic analytics?
So it is semantic analytics and the input. So the algorithm is going through that project description, getting a sense of what it's looking for, and then getting pointed to these other sources. Now, I don't know. So for instance, I think, not sure, but I think, for example, the other multilateral development banks, their publicly available information, I think the project or the algorithm is looking at those project descriptions as well. It's going through, on the library side, it's going through the articles, looking for the similar words. So it's using that terminology to provide a ranking, and so you will see, and the output is a screen with these are the 10 projects that ranked highest, and you can go through all of them if you want. And then the next section, these are the people that you should be talking to. These are the you know, the strategic documents that are important as background material. So it's, yeah, it's serving these things up to you in a nice interface, an easy to use interface.
Okay, it means that your product is helping us with the cross-reference and trying to crawling the data from your library and give us about the matching and the most important project we can relate with. Am I right? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's essentially what it's doing. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Margot. Thank you.
Agus.
You're welcome.
Should we take a last question, or maybe if we have a question from Moria or Art or Annie, would you like to ask a few words or say a few words to Margot?
Yeah, let me just have a quick hello and thank you again, Margot, for your great insights. Yeah, from a leadership organizational standpoint, I got a quick question. The whole impetus behind putting together this group and this course was we are traditional KMers, and KM has evolved, as Vincent talked about earlier, from the early days of storytelling, the communities of practice, to SharePoint, and all of that. And then in parallel, this AI machine learning world was evolving. And Margot, you indicated that you came across this group in Chennai who were the data scientists. They put together the algorithms for that helped your KM group. Organizationally, are those two groups still separate, or what are your thoughts, and what have you been doing, and what are your ideas on bringing those two together? Are they now in the same organization, or how do you at least coordinate those two worlds? Because AI and KM are definitely converging, and what thoughts can you offer in terms of, as leaders, how can we better facilitate that convergence?
Well, I was actually fortunate when I came into the unit, that Chennai team was part of our unit. So they've always been part of the unit. The vision for knowledge management was that there is this opportunity to use, you know, more advanced data analytics, because we have, I mean, we're sitting on so much information. And I mean, it's a little daunting sometimes, but that was always the vision for the unit, is to be using these technologies. So that team has always been part of the knowledge management program. Now, you know, we're looking at other, as I said, other opportunities as well. I'd like to, you know, see if we can think about other pain points in the organization. I mean, I don't want everything to turn into a knowledge package necessarily. So that's the other piece that we need to be better at, is the integration with our operations, how things work. And this was one of the other advantages of working with this team in Chennai, is they knew and understood all of the mandatory documents that had to be filed intimately. So they could slice and dice so easily. But we really needed somebody in Washington who was kind of walking the halls and understanding what those pain points are and how we might be able to use the skills of the team in Chennai to address those pain points.
Yeah, very good, thank you. So AI, KM, and the business side now, probably a three-legged stool, if you will, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and using really also more or less a design thinking approach. If we look back at it, I mean, identifying again these pain points, again prototyping, testing, and learning, and all of this. So it really goes towards, I mean, this kind of this mindset, which is great. Annie or Moria?
Yeah. Yes, I would like to ask. Oh, Annie, please.
And we have the
Sure,
last word
'cause
for
I could-
Maria. Yes.
Okay. Hi, Margot. Thank you again. This was very insightful and I really enjoyed it. I had a question. I was listening when you were talking about the IEG with the systems and, I guess they're tracking most of the systems and everything. And I think it's really great that you have combined KM and AI simply because I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think they need to work together. But I also have this, my burning area is digital transformation and making certain that the data or the foundation is correct. And I know you said that technology was one of the biggest, was the weakness, but I'm wondering too, what do you think about data? Because you have the privacy laws that are there, you have the pertinent need to know, you have all of this other stuff that actually resides on the integrity and the quality of the data and whether or not that data has been digitally transformed so that it can propagate throughout the organization. So I want to know your view on that.
Sure. So as I mentioned, the World Bank Group is a very data-driven organization. So in terms of the bank's development data, I mean, it's used as a reference point for national policies and policy making throughout the world. Actually, it's interesting the amount of times you'll see in a report from McKinsey or Deloitte or somebody, it's all based on World Bank data. So,
Okay.
but that is, I mean, as the knowledge bank and the open knowledge repository, that's part of our mandate, right? To push as much as we can out into the public sector to get the knowledge and the data and the information in the hands of people who can do something with it. I mean, it's not just the policymakers, it's the development practitioners, it's people who are working in the field. It's really, really important. And the bank does take the integrity and the privacy very, very important, very, very seriously. So we do have, corporate data policies. We have policies in terms of development data as well. If anything, we're probably, one of the groundbreaking organizations that have really moved a lot of this forward. But the goal, as I said, is to make as much of it available as possible. And it's not just the data that we make available, but it's also, I know I'm not a data person, so I will be talking about something here I don't really understand, but we make it available how you can replicate how we came up with that data. So,
okay.
Yeah, so that's really important as well from an integrity perspective.
Absolutely, and that kind of bridges on to explainable AI. So you're making it aware of how it came about. Thank you. I appreciate your answers.
You're welcome.
Maria, last word for you.
Yes. I had some questions, but I'll leave them out because I see the time we're running out of time. Dear Margot, thank you so much. We learned a lot. We enjoyed your being a pioneer of AI and KM as one, and yet giving the business, not speaking with business on KM, not speaking with business on AI, but speaking with them on the unmet needs and giving them solutions. And I think that also that should be a good lesson for us all. Stop speaking in our language and giving the customers what they really need, no matter if it's using the classical, traditional methodologies or using new methodologies, new technologies, new solutions. So thank you so much for the new and for the traditional, for embedding processes and for showing us also some of your challenges. Dear people, next week we are starting our second part. And I think that today was also an ending of the first part, showing a typical project, but also opening the second part, the second cluster of our course, where we are now going to see week after week different AI technologies that serve KM. Art next week is going to discuss the auto tagging and additional AI solutions and components that help KM with the Megaputer company. So thank you all, and we will be waiting for you for next to join us next week. And Margot, as we already told you, you are also invited to join us whenever you can. Thank you all, and good day, good evening, good morning, good night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Margot.
very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you all.
Margaret. Thanks for
Thank you.
speaking.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Margot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
you.
Thank you.